Thank you for joining us today. My name is Julie Marie, and I'm with the Archdiocese of Anchorage, Alaska, and I am fortunate to be among those who get to work with our speaker today, Sister Lorraine Reaume. Did I say that right? Okay. Reaume. Trying to get that wrong. Sister Lorraine is an Adrian Dominican sister. She's originally from Canada. She let a few A's drop last night. She was a lay missionary in Bolivia, and as a sister has ministered in campus ministry and Hispanic ministry. She has spent the last 5 years at Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish in Anchorage, Alaska. Please help me welcome Sister Lorraine.
It seems funny for me to be speaking, on Hispanic ministry when I'm not Hispanic, obviously, and so it's very humbling. Although it's interesting in the calls and gifted workshops that you've heard, I took that, and one of the highest ones for me is missionary, which means I'm a lot happier when I work in a culture different than my own. And it's true, I am. I for whatever reason in my heart, I have a preferential option for the Hispanic community. And I just love working with that community. It just fills my heart. And so I think just the second one down, Julie, made it. Just the middle one, the zone 2. Got it. So it's just something that I'm drawn to and I'm privileged to be a part of. And it's so, as you all know, the Hispanic community and our church is so essential. It's growing. It's a community, that needs people walking with and also, really wanting to accompany and be supportive. As Julie said, I do have a background as a missionary in Bolivia, which is a different culture, but that's where I learned the language. And we were just talking, and I was in Bolivia as well, and they speak probably the slowest Spanish there, so it's a really great place to learn Spanish. And also, I did my theology at Catholic Theological Union, which has a real cross-cultural focus, and that also some of my courses have been, we did the theology of migration, which has really helped me in working with people, and God images in Hispanic religiosity with Gary Ruby Estrella, who is a member of ACTUS, which is the Association of Latin American Theologians. So I got some wonderful experience there, and then of course these last 5 years of being really immersed in the Hispanic community in Anchorage. Now some of you might already be in this, some of you are in parishes that have a lot more Hispanics even than we work with. So I'm hoping to finish in time to hear also from you some of your ideas and what works for you. And I just hope that by sharing what we've done and discovered in Anchorage, it might get some of you ideas. How many of you serve or minister directly with the Hispanic community in your parishes? So, most of the people here. ¿Y cuántos hablan español aquí? Casi como la mitad. Okay, so we'll do this. Because I think everybody speaks English.
Try.
Good try.
I'm just guessing.
Okay. And it's interesting that this is called stewardship, right? And I thought, well, Hispanic ministry stewardship. How does that go together? In stewardship, co-responsabilidad. How are we good stewards of our people? We have a huge community of Hispanics coming into our church, right? And we need to be good stewards of this community and of an underserved population because the growth is so fast. So we need to make sure we're being good stewards of that. And also many people, because of recent immigration, especially those areas where the immigration is recent, really difficult living situations, horrible, painful immigration struggles, which we all know, and sometimes financial struggles, family struggles because of the transition of cultures. So being good stewards, but also inviting this wonderfully gifted community to stewardship, to share time and talent and treasure, to develop its own potential as wonderful leaders that our church desperately needs. So let me start by showing you Alaska. Okay, this is the state of Alaska, and there are 3 dioceses. Fairbanks is the entire top. Juneau is down here, and then Anchorage here all the way up to, well, to about here actually, underneath Russia. And the Archdiocese of Anchorage is about 800,000 square miles, so it's huge. Our main Hispanic communities at this point, and the parishes I'm going to speak about, is Holy Family Cathedral, right in the city of Anchorage, which is right in here. And Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is where I serve, and Kodiak, the St. Mary's on Kodiak Island. There are other areas where it's growing. That's an area we have to focus on how do we reach, including Dutch Harbor, which is 3-hour commercial flight and very expensive. So that's an ongoing area of how to reach people in really, really isolated places. Anchorage itself is a city of about 300,000, and there could be as many as 40,000 Hispanics in the most recent, study, 40,000. And it's one of the highest growing communities in Anchorage. Obviously, we do not reach a vast majority of those people. And that's not Alaska, that's Anchorage itself has 40,000. Probably 50,000 of those are from Mexico.
How many parishes?
In the Anchorage city itself, there's about 9, and then in the Archdiocese, 29. Some of those are tiny and remote.
So that 40,000 is sprinkled in?
That 40,000 is, in Anchorage, is just 2 parishes. So a lot of those people are not, we're not reaching. Yeah, because there's only 2 parishes that have Hispanic okay, so that's actually a picture of downtown Anchorage, which is okay.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, that's right. It must be that one. Okay, keep going. It's a bit of an adjustment climate-wise, but people always manage to do it. So. And then this is Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish, which is ours, designed in a Southwest style. It has about, let's see, 400 Hispanic families attend, I would say more or less. Fluid, they tend to go between the 2 parishes, and probably about 35% of our parish is Hispanic. So I know some of you have much higher percentage. High Filipino population as well, and then Anglo, and then smattering of some different cultures. But the key is our Anglo, Filipino, and Hispanic. And then the Holy Family, okay, this is more Guadalupe, which is done in a beautiful Southwestern style too. And which is really nice, except this style is also this outside walkway. Isn't that necessarily practical for Alaska, but it keeps you, alive. And inside it's very beautiful. We're very lush. It's a beautiful church. And we do have a tapestry of Guadalupe on the side that we ordered from John Nova. And we have our smaller chapel specifically dedicated to Guadalupe with a beautiful painting as well. And then Holy Family Cathedral is the downtown cathedral. It has about 300 Hispanic families, but just 15 to 20% of the parish is Hispanic. And those 2 churches, I'll tell you more about them, we function very differently. But I'll do the overall and then explain some of the differences in ministry. And then St. Mary's Kodiak. This is still Holy Family. And St. Mary's Kodiak is the one on the island, next one. And it's an hour flight to get there, and it's quite expensive. So the people there are really, really isolated. There's about just 50 families, 20% of their parish. Now in Anchorage, people will say, well, why don't they combine? I don't know if you ever get this. Why don't all the Hispanics just go to one parish? And we try to explain, well, there's different cultures, there's different histories, there's different personalities, and we don't say, well, why don't all the Anglos just go to one parish? And it doesn't honor the history of those 2 parishes. So those 2 communities are still thriving. We don't try to melt it together and make just one parish, because then also you lose the enrichment of the cultures in those places. Just to give you a breakdown of the cultures of the parishes too. At our Guadalupe, we would have 80% are Mexican heritage, and well, not just heritage, most of ours are first generations, even if they've been there, say, 30 years, 40 years, but came as first generation immigrants and then their kids. So 80% Mexican, then Colombians, and then smaller El Salvador, Peru, and very small Dominican Republic, Honduras, Guatemala, and Panama. But the cathedral, and I keep pointing to Lupe because she's from the cathedral, it has a greater mixture of cultures and more from the Caribbean and more from the Dominican Republic. So that shapes the nature of the parish as well. St. Mary's in Kodiak is more El Salvadorians who are there for the fishing industry, working in the canneries, some Guatemalan and some Mexican. And it's probably a poorer, more struggling, and in some ways more suffering community there. Okay, I'd like to go into our current model. What we found function. This is Father Dominic de Mayo, and he's tall, skinny redhead, but his Spanish is beautiful. He's lived and studied in Spain and Mexico, and and so that he has a deep appreciation for the culture. He has been full-time director of Hispanic ministry just for the past year, and his shift to full-time has really made a difference for us. He was part-time and he was stretched so thin going between the 3 parishes. And it was good for me to have a sounding board, but to be honest, I felt kind of on my own. You know, I was just floundering, trying to do the best I could. But now we have a team. As well. And that would be myself and Father Dominic, and Sister Mary Peter is, she's Mexican-American, and she functions as a volunteer at the cathedral with the Hispanic community, and then I serve full-time at our parish. And then Father Dominic is full-time Hispanic ministry. So with that team, we've been able to bring things together. And the 3 of us can talk about stuff, say that's confidential or just archdiocesan business, but what's really key to this team is that we have had, over the past year, a representative from each of the parishes. Alan Ortega does not usually dress like this. That was a special feast. But yeah, that's me. But he and Lupe come representing each of their parishes, and we plan together, we share together, we coordinate everything we do, so that it's not just, oh, we're doing something here, we're doing something there. It's just been wonderful to share ideas, to get input, to make decisions together. And I just wanted to invite Lupe to come and share a little bit of her experience of being on this team for the past year.
Since I'm not used to talking in public that much, I mean, I wear notes. I still mess up though. Well, like Sister Lorraine said, I'm Lupe. My last name is Ortega. I'm original from Mexico, and I've been in Alaska for 15 years now. I love it. Well, my personal experience being part of this Spanish ministry, it's been very, very positive and very great. And I personally feel more part of the parish and welcome. By collaborating with the Spanish ministry, meeting once a month, and just being part of the group and making decisions as a group and organizing, it just makes me feel really, really valuable and very welcome to the parish. And also, I believe that it helps our parish by keeping our parish informed of the parishioners and what's going on and activities and special events that's going to be happening in our parishes. And we can help them feel more valuable like I felt. So I want to transmit that to them also. And the main thing for me is that we make them feel we work together as a community, not just one parish, another parish. It's a big community, and that's my major important thing. We can feel welcome. So thank you.
You know, because sometimes when you're, you know, on staff at a parish, there's things you get caught up in, and maybe you're missing something that's going on at a deeper level. And so we really value them and their perspective that they bring and the sense that they bring. And even as we have speakers, you know, what should be their focus? What group should they focus on? And so it's really been such a blessing. And we've expanded that now. We have a couple others who are coming, so that this team is getting a bit bigger. And really, just for me in the last year, it's made a huge difference.
It's been a big difference.
So, and I imagine if any of you are in a situation where you don't speak Spanish and yet you're serving with the Hispanic community, find some of your key leaders who are bilingual who can do that. I mean, we do the best we can, especially when we're in mission diocese. We don't have the ideal, but we try to do the best we can, and sometimes that actually leads to people being the chance to be leaders who may not have had that chance. So there can be behind the, a blessing to that. All right. Also, this team, what we do is we've also invited other people who help organize things to come to it. So it's also a place where people could share what they like to do. Or our Archbishop, now on the Archdiocesan Pastoral Council, took a while, but now we have 2 Hispanic representatives. And Daniel Esparza is one. And they came and met with us to plan, how are you going to represent us to the Archdiocese, to this Pastoral Council? And they came and debriefed the session afterwards. Oh, that's Daniel as well in front. So he's a key leader, union leader in the community. What I'd like to do now is just go through some things that we've done that grew out of, are enhanced by the team approach, things that I would say help our pan-Hispanic community. And one thing too, Julia talked to me about, because I don't know, some of you may have mostly one culture, but we try to be really cognizant of reaching all our cultures, being aware, because when you have one culture that's dominant, like Mexicans, sometimes the others can feel lost. So we really try to be conscious of that. All right, we have outside speakers. We found that's really helpful for faith formation and spirituality. There seems to be a stronger response. You know, when you have someone coming from outside, it's very exciting. So 2 to 3 times a year. But what's kind of nice is how we work together. Say, okay, what are you going to focus on? What needs might you need? What group? And this is sort of shared between all the parishes so that we get a better turnout. People do the fundraising for this. Sometimes the parishes support, but we also work together to fundraise, to plan the events. It's about 2 to 3 times a year. Someone comes up for a week or 10 days. And even one more recently went to the island of Kodiak. We decided to use them almost solely on the island of Kodiak because they're so lacking, and we just had him do his end bits in Anchorage. But what we do with these, whoever comes, is we look for the fruits. Like, who comes from outside? What real, because it's easy to say, oh, this is exciting, an outside speaker, but what's happening afterwards? So this, for Father Jose de Jesus, for example, he's a magnificent speaker. If you ever have a chance to get him, he did, I think, go through all these a little bit to the urgent care. So that was another labor share who came. Just builds community to have these. These are key people who organize these events. Okay, out of his, he had 40 couples come for a workshop on marriage. And they came, they had a wonderful week. But what it led to was they formed a marriage support group. They had couples who met, and then they got connected with Worldwide Marriage Encounter, had the first Hispanic marriage encounter in Alaska last year. Then some of them have become trained leaders, had the second one in Spanish, and now we're looking at doing 2 Worldwide Marriage Encounters each year. And they do our Hispanic marriage preparation. So that's been, from his week there, wonderful, wonderful fruits have come, and have really led to leaders forming, and they're just going with it now, which is really exciting. A caution we have of these, because we talked about looking at fruits. Well, obviously you need to vet, and you need to ensure proper boundaries when you come from outside. But also, for example, charismatic sometimes approach, which can be very appealing, but sometimes can trigger a lot. And so if you come and you do a workshop that is really triggering emotionally traumatic stuff, we don't have anything in place to deal with that. We don't have Hispanic counselors up there. We have one person who just left the state. So we have to be really mindful of what people coming from outside are doing, and are they doing something that might be triggering something that we don't have the ability to deal with. I mean, if it happens, we try, but it can be kind of manipulative, so we're really conscious of that. Not that to say there's not something good in that movement, because it really speaks to people, but we've had an issue of a presenter coming in, and that happened, so we really monitor that. So that would be a caution. And another caution of outside speakers, and this is one of our lay leaders said this, she said, we don't want to be parasites. So that we think the only people who can do something are those from outside, even, you know, Hispanic outside. We need to learn to be leaders ourselves. And so from that, it led to some more stuff that we're doing. Now, if we can use these outside speakers to kind of spur us on, but then to say, okay, but what are we going to do? And even if it's smaller, it's not as dynamic, it doesn't matter, because we're forming the long-term core. And so that woman, myself, and another person, we formed a team to do retreats, and we did like a prayer, input, and dinamica that we really did mutually. And the people who came to that was a small group, but it was really substantial. And those people took turns leading the prayer, and then we're starting a Bible study in the fall out of that, and saying we can do this. And we know it's starting small, but we hope that it builds leadership among them. So I think that's just a caution that we've done. And also, some of the speakers have encouraged leaders to organize their own retreats. So keep going a little bit. This is the marriage encounter people, and to some of the events that they organized. Keep going. Oh, yeah, and this, okay. So the leaders organized a Pentecost vigil on their own. They love people coming in and doing these workshops. They're like, you know, you can do this. And so they got a room up at the cathedral, and it's run by the team. But it's passed by it. Like, what do you think about this? What do you do that? But it's not like we don't do it. We don't organize it. It's more like a consulting and sharing. And then they plan, how are we going to do this event and have this wonderful Pentecost vigil, because that's what they wanted and did it themselves. So some of these events have led people to say, oh, we enjoy this, we're going to make it happen. So just encouraging whoever has the little initiative to run with that to say, okay, go with that and give them the support that they need. This is an exciting new thing. This is Sister Mary Peter and Patricia is a superb lady there, and Jaime is a musician, and they have gone to Kodiak Island to do mission work, really, to reach out. And Mary Peter is especially good with the kids. Patricia has a real gift for women, and women seek her out, and she's gone and done women's retreats there. And so they have gone with our support to Kodiak Island to lead week-long retreats. And Jaime is a wonderful musician, and as a man, because he was there, this is just recently, more men came to it. And so it's a community that now feels supported by their brothers and sisters in Anchorage. And it's a great feeling to feel like we're sending our own missionaries to them. The next one is actually, these are all from the Kodiak workshop, actually. And Patricia herself, who led those, she's a lay leader who has really done a lot of her, we actually got her in a MAPS program with the school that didn't kind of come through in terms of distance learning. So she's actually got herself in with the University of Dayton, doing online courses, and she's doing her own formation kind of stuff, and she's really amazing. I mean, she's just someone who seeks out her own learning. And so we're going to keep trying to find ways to support her in that, because she's going to do that. The next slide is actually, I said that women seek her out. Patricia formed a women's spirituality group once a month, because she just kept having all these women come to her, so that's recognizing, again, someone's gift. They just were coming. But she came, she said, what should I do? And ran it by us, and we decided with her, she was going to do a once-a-month support group for these women and teach them about whatever they wanted. And sometimes one of us could go as a guest speaker, or she prepared something. And it's just become a wonderful monthly gathering. And just a month ago, she invited all the husbands so they wouldn't be suspicious and would understand what's happening and how to pop up. And so it's just, we found like taking the people who have some energy and just go with it. See how can we support them. Okay, next. And of course, all of you know the feast days are huge, huge, huge. And sometimes, you can hear a criticism, well, it's not just, the food or the dances or the clothing, but yet, there's something so beautiful about honoring the tradition. And this isn't like, these traditions aren't a show. These are traditions of let's celebrate our culture amongst ourselves. That's a very different dynamic. And I just think that the joy, the excitement, the energy that comes around celebrating traditional celebrations well it's powerful. It also forms leaders. And when you have huge, Feast of Guadalupe celebrations with thousands of people, you have people who know what they're doing. I mean, it's a lot of planning, a lot of leadership, and it's a chance for people who maybe didn't realize they have those skills to be showing them. Now, we've, of course, the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe has been celebrated very well in our parish for many years. It's the patroness. But there's been more collaboration. It's growing and growing every year. And the cathedral has even had, they've come and had a procession to be part of it because they didn't feel quite as much part of it. And so there's unity there. We focus on her as patroness of all the Americas so that it's not, this is a Mexican holiday, this is for all of us too, And we have a mariachi band, which I think is really cool, is that the guy who really got together, the guy with the trumpet, is Venezuelan. So it's just a neat connection of cultures and collaboration there.
It's because there's musicians and singers from both parishes, so they're
it's really a great effort of working together, and how many youth are involved in this, which is, these celebrations really bring in the youth too, which is so essential. It seems to develop pride in them. And it's called Sol de Alaska. Oh, and Lupe's husband, just like it.
You want me to go back?
Yeah, sure. Lupe's husband is right there, second from the left. It's like very talented musician. Hey, keep going. And these are all the dances. And it's even got people teaching, the choreography of these, learning them and teaching them to each other. So then developing leadership skills and making costumes. A lot of fun. Lots of youth, lots of our youth. And that's the woman in the middle is the one who sews, who makes them all. And just the devotion, it really touches the rest of the parish too. And you know, the altar with the flowers and how it's designed is magnificent. I was telling you last night, the woman who does the altar, you know, that's a gift that she has. We keep talking about the gifts in the workshops we've been at. And she says that every year she gets a vision from the Virgin of how she wants the altar to look. And she just does something so creative, and that involves people every year. One year it was the stars on the mantilla, you know, had a special wish for a prayer, so everybody put a star on. Another time it was rose petals with your prayer, your petition. Like stuff that engages the whole people, and she's brilliant. She always gets an inspiration for something. And we also try to, you know, honor various festivals. Sometimes it depends on the size of the community. Anybody know what this one is?
Señor de los Milagros.
Eso. Yeah. It's a big Peruvian one, and we have a fairly big Peruvian community. This is our Archbishop celebrating that as well. And that's my pastor, Father Vince, and Father Dominic. So we've grown in celebrating that. That used to be like 20 Peruvians who would celebrate it, and now it's parish-wide, and it's very beautiful, but all these different communities working together. So I think it's a witness of again, that pan-Hispanic celebration of each other's cultures that's been really lovely. So these are all typical Peruvian dances, which are really distinct. Well, that's not Peruvian, that's Mexican. You can go back one. So these are from, actually that's from Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo, which is really an American way of celebrating it, but the community says, oh, the Americans all think it is, so we'll celebrate it. You know? So we always have a party. That's right.
Sister Lorraine, if you guys notice, she's right there.
Yeah.
She's all into the food.
That was a good cultural experience. They even found me blonde princess, so that was fun. Yeah. Well, we also, with Mexican Independence Day, they organized, you know, a kermés, a food fair kind of thing, with they did it like, okay, well, maybe El Salvadorians can do this food booth, and the Colombians can do this, and then the Veracruzans can do this, and so it was a particular drawing in of everyone. In Independence Day, especially, one error I made was, I didn't realize, and someone corrected me, that it's the Independence Day of a number of countries, Colombia, Honduras, and so, you know, to just try to be aware of that and name that in the announcements, and this is about all of us here. So this is what our parish center looks like a lot. There's a lot of celebrations. Our pastor really enjoys these as well. He's Filipino, by the way. I put this here because this was at the Kermés, and it's a dunk tank, you know. But it was more a cultural learning for me, because that's me. I agreed to do this, and people were like, "Oh, sister, I'm gonna get you. Oh, I can't wait. Oh, sister." But then at the moment, they couldn't do it. Yeah, they really couldn't. Only it was like the kids, and some people didn't know me very well. So it's like, it was a good learning that, because even Adan, who's on the team, he was bugging me, "Oh, I want to do this," and then I was even saying, "Come on, Adan," you said. So I won't do that again. Once was enough. But even that, like, it's good to learn the dynamic there. Yeah. And this was beautifully celebrated. The cathedral celebrated 10 years of having Spanish Mass. And they got a virgin from each of the countries there. So it was really lovely. And people from those countries, and they were dressed in it, and as much as possible matched the people to the country they were from. So people felt very welcome at that. And so all the images were at the front of the class. So it's really a nice way to recognize the breadth of the culture. Sorry, that was all I could find for the prayer group. But we have prayer groups at both places. The cathedral has a charismatic prayer group, which has really grown. They're in their 6th year. Sister Mary Peter accompanies but doesn't lead. So these are lay-led. It's really, they've grown spiritually. And it's went through a time, and you probably experienced this, where there were like 3 people for 2 years. But then it's grown, and they've developed more leaders. And they're the ones who actually organize a lot of these events, like the larger prayer things, the prayer vigil. So it's kind of a good, for me, there's been a lot of these, hang in there. Because sometimes things that look really small eventually grow. And they really have developed leadership out of that. And then the next one is one we have, it's very small, but it's our parish is based on the Comunidad de Base model, you know, in the See, Judge, Act. So actually get a sheet from a priest in Texas who gives us a, hecho de vida, an example of real life, real struggles. Look at it according to Scripture and talk about how do we apply it to our life.
So do you have a, do I see on my left a Dominican?
That's Father Dominic, who's the Dominican. Yeah, I think he's the director of Hispanic ministry for Archdiocese.
And how long has he been in that position?
Just 1 year. That's why I was sharing at the front, like what a difference it's made to have him full time.
You've been here on time.
Hey, Deacon. I was on official church business, so I can go on record as that.
I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
Yeah, his being there has been in full-time position has helped us to be much more coordinated, all as a community. Yeah, he is not usually at that group, but he was there. And it's the blessing of that particular group. It's grown and shrunk for me because we share at such a deep level. It's helped me understand the culture so much more because people have shared really from their hearts about what they're going through, and it's probably been one of the best ways for me to understand what's going on. Oh, and of course, the youth group. I mean, youth we know are hugely important, and I actually saw in this archdiocese, there's several youth groups going on. This is the main one. Well, there's more kids than that, but we have a lay couple who's been leading our holidays for about 4 years now. And this also has been a lesson in patience for me. The couple is absolutely wonderful and adores the kids, and the kids like them. And they're very committed. They have been a bit resistant to some formation because they sort of take it as, oh, maybe you're criticizing or you're saying we're not good enough. But after a few years, it was finally, oh, you care about us. And I don't know what made that shift, but I'm really glad we hung in there. Part of it, the woman I work with also, who's in charge of our youth, they need to be accountable to her in some way, just not in terms of saying everything they do, but just, the way structures go. And it's been really hard for them to know that doesn't mean we don't trust you, it's just the way things run. So it's taken us a few years to get there, but all of a sudden, there's a receptivity where there wasn't. And this is an example of someone who has such leadership skills, but needs just some more formation. And it's the problem we have of people who clearly have a call and yet say only have high school, they're not quite ready for the advanced formation. Yeah, and so the Catholic Church I know is working on how do we do that? How do we meet that gap? Because these are great people with lots to offer. And Father Dominic just came back from the National Association of Diocesan Directors in Hispanic Ministry. And I guess there are new shifts. It looks like there's going to be supports from, Catholic Extension has some money coming for people in that position to start learning. MAC, so the Mexican American Catholic College, is going to start having some training programs. And the Congar Institute is another one that he said is willing to come, assess the needs of your archdiocese, and help you train in a way that will form your leaders. So it seems like we might be at a key moment in the church where some of these things are blossoming, because that's really a need, and it's so hard for people who, as you know, work, 2 jobs, or the couple work 2 jobs or more, and they're just extended so much, so they don't have much time or energy. So we need to keep finding ways that make it as easy as possible for them to become more formed and walk with them when they do it. But in the meantime, the love and service they have is phenomenal. I also wanted to mention with the youth, what our parish, I'm really happy that they've accepted, and you've probably read this before, you'll have a youth group and a Spanish youth group, and some people will be upset by that. They say, well, it shouldn't be divided. But our kids are in both, because there's the traditional youth group, which is high school, right? And that's open to everybody. Hispanic youth, holy days groups are not high school. Like it starts about 13, it goes a lot older. Yeah, it's just part of the culture. I just say, no, it has to be that. You have to leave this age. It doesn't work. And so why not have the two? And the kids who are in high school age, they go to both, and they like both.
And then that they serve every Sunday, they get them
once a month they serve at Mass, which is wonderful witness to the parents, and they're really getting, and that's also leadership formation, because they learn to be Eucharistic ministers, to be vectors, yeah. And it's been a good experience for them. So, and a whole group of these kids are going to World Youth Day too, which is exciting. Okay. This is the consul. I don't know if you have a Mexican consul where you are. It's a great outreach for collaboration. He has been absolutely wonderful for our parish. There's a national program called Ventana de Salud, which is Health Window Program, and if they collaborate, the Mexican consulate will try to support health services, health promotion in your area. And because the parishes are usually the biggest gathering of Hispanics, like this is, if you want to find a group of Hispanics, the largest is going to be at our parish. So Health and Human Services works with him, and they've come to us to have a health fair in the cathedral, to have SIG cars, safety seat check, and that kind of thing. So if you have a consult, it's worth connecting. It's been really a blessing for us to have this and to lead to larger community collaboration. And that's it. Okay, and also I want to mention the university. We are really blessed that our, that's obviously not it, but University of Anchorage, Alaska has really wants to reach out to the Hispanic community, and you probably have that wherever you are. They came after Mass and did a fair, an information fair, because a lot of people are intimidated to go, or they don't know there's financial aid, they don't know there's work study possibilities. So if you can invite your university to come and do that. Not only that, a professor and admissions person came to our youth group to talk on a Friday night. It's amazing how generous they are, but you can say, you know, they're doing that up in Anchorage, because it's the education of a key community. So that's been an exciting collaboration, and they're really committed to it. And obviously, one way we try to do is by being welcoming, flexible for quinceañeras. We prepare. Hopefully, we're going to get a team soon. Right now, I do it, which is kind of absurd that I'm doing quinceañera preparation, but that's okay. But try, you know, whichever priest can do it, whichever church can host it, you know, so that and there's a sense of welcoming, like this is your place. At our, actually, I think I'll put it in here because keep going. There's New Year's Eve. The choir said, well, can we just have a little family gathering, all the people in our choir? We're just going to have a little celebration for New Year's Eve. Well, it turned into a big party of 200, and nobody announced it. Nobody knows how everybody found out. But what that said to me was, this community feels really at home in the church. On New Year's Eve, they chose to come to our parish hall to spend time. And that is a huge celebration. At midnight, obviously. And after midnight, probably. But, because the history...
You want me to go back?
Okay. The history, Hispanics in Anchorage go back, 30, 40 years. And in our parish, the Monsignor who's named our parish, Arlene Guadalupe, didn't actually like Mexicans. Lord knows why he named it that way, maybe it was meant to go that way. But the Hispanic community was not given a place there. They had to rent. They actually had to rent a hall to meet there and arrange to get their priests. And you can imagine that was, so a woman just before coming here, she was in my office telling me about the history of it, and she was crying, and she was saying, I drove around with the supplies for coffee donuts in my car. We had all the stuff divided up in our cars, and we were so unwelcome. And she said, we went for over a decade, sometimes mad, and then sometimes just saying, oh, well, that's okay. Sometimes mad, and up and down. But she said apparently one time they had a strike, and it got covered on the news. But then at that time it was mid-90s, and she said some of the Anglos in the parish said, we want to be one community too. And then they brought in Father Warfel, who is now Bishop Warfel, and he was only there a short time, but there was a huge shift in that time. And so from then on, the Hispanic community was part of Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish. It was part of it. And this woman was saying to me, it's so different now. We're so welcome. This is our home. This is our parish. And to me, that just gives such hope of, a place where people had to rent to celebrate Mass, to now, no, this is our home. That shift can happen in the same parish where it started is really a sign of hope for me. And then that woman and this community and our early people were willing to hang in there through that. I thanked her for her fidelity. That's amazing. So that's a real sign of hope. Oh, I put this because, since I'm an immigrant too, I just got my citizenship when I was in Anchorage, which really helped me because I've had immigration passes too and been denied entry. So it does help me have some empathy with some of the immigration struggles. And I offered citizenship classes, which I think is really helpful if we can do that. Because sometimes people feel more comfortable coming to the church. Sometimes there's not much in our community, sometimes there is. But there's just, especially around immigration stuff, more of a sense of safety. So if we have people who are able to do that, it's nice to be aware and be able to offer that. And to be able to announce to the parish, hey, guess what, I got my citizenship today. That was kind of fun. One thing I wanted to mention that is different between the parishes, Holy Family Cathedral here is kind of it's smaller and it functions as a separate Hispanic community. It's not really integrated in the whole parish. Now in some ways maybe it's closer that way, in some ways maybe even some stronger leaders have formed, but there's no, in a way there's not an acceptance that this is a bilingual parish, right?
Yeah,
The
right,
cathedral.
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Whereas at the Lorraine of Guadalupe, we really, really work hard to try to integrate, to try to say, no, all these communities are our parish. You know, it's 35%, so that's a pretty significant amount. And the sisters at the cathedral is a volunteer with this Hispanic community, whereas I have the benefit of being full-time pastoral associate, do RCIA with the English community as well, so I can be a bit more of a bridge in that way, which I'm really grateful for. We make our bulletin is bilingual, completely bilingual. No, not yours. And you know, any announcement, any poster is done English and Spanish. Our large masses, we celebrate bilingually. We have one Spanish mass on the weekend, but always, you know, the Triduum masses, Ash Wednesday, Christmas Eve are always done as a bilingual mass. Father will give the homily and I will give a reflection after.
Speak to your response, if I may ask, of when you first started bilingual masses. I don't know how long you've had them. Speak to the response and the reaction of people in general across the culture.
Yeah, it's mixed. Some people really don't like it and don't choose to come to those ones.
From both cultures.
From both cultures, yes, although probably more from the Anglo, yeah, and Filipino, yeah, because Filipinos don't want Tagalog, they just want the English one, which is fine. So there is some resistance. We wrote a letter in the bulletin saying this is why we do it, and because sometimes people say, well, they need to learn English. Well, of course everybody needs to learn English, but we worship, our language of worshiping God is our first language, so we want to honor that. And we also want to be a witness to the fact that this church isn't one culture, it's many cultures, and so that's why all these big celebrations. So we tried to explain it, and some people just complain. I think what we've done is said, this is what we're doing and stick with it, in spite of that, and some don't come, but more and more do come to enjoy it. So I think, you know, we feel it's the right thing to do, so we do it, even though there might be some negative reaction, but it seems like it's accepted. Some enjoy it, others just say, well, I'm going to Easter morning.
Do you feel that those masses help the participation of the Anglos into the Sunday community?
How do you mean?
Well, like the communities or something like that. Do the Anglos come into those events after these?
A bit more, they get more, some do more. Now that's great, because a lot of these events are purely Hispanic with a few who are interested in open. That would be a huge growth area, to have more mixing. And I think it's really the start of that. And I think there's more comfort through those masses, but probably more through being on committees together. When we have parish committees, we try to make sure all cultures are represented.
Do you have a sense for how much of what percentage of your Latino population are comfortable in both languages? Or can you address that?
Yeah, it does vary.
Because that's a key question.
Oh yeah, I would say half or less than half are comfortable in both.
Yeah, I would think that's general, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's and even of that, like even of the ones comfortable in both, when it comes to religion, it's probably practice of religion, I would say 80%.
And you're seeing that change, if you're like us, you're seeing that change with the younger generation.
For sure.
That's
right. The kids prefer, yeah, and the kids prefer Spanglish. That's if you ask them what language they want to speak, they'll say it's English. They won't have both.
My 18-year-old, I mean, she's fluent in Spanish, and when it comes to church and praying and stuff, she rather does it in Spanish than English.
Yeah, but you have even younger now. When I preach in Spanish and greet them in Spanish either before or after Mass. And I have young 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old twins in one case, and I spoke to them in Spanish, and the mother finally interjects and says, Padre, tú debes hablar en inglés porque ellos no entienden.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, so the younger generation, you know, we have a microcosm a culture, I mean, of Mexico in the city of Warden, Washington, out in the
Right.
basin. And that whole the language is English for teaching children.
Yeah,
You know, and this is a dominantly Latino parish.
right. And our faith formation is in English, with handouts to the parents in Spanish, so they know.
But see, we have this struggle back and forth between the parents who no entienden inglés, I mean, they don't get English
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
And yet the kids,
Well,
Yeah,
as
that's the
a,
same, yeah. it's the
That's-
same
that's
thing.
a-
as an elementary school teacher,
Yeah.
I teach a lot of non-English speakers, and they don't have either language. They don't have enough of either. So we are finding in our parish, they're not learning in Spanish or English.
But then you have those parents who like want their kids to be like CCD classes, they want them to be in Spanish, but they don't.
But they don't
kids
understand
Yeah.
what
And
it
the
is.
kids want it in English.
yeah, this is an adult issue, this is not a kid's issue.
Right, right,
Yeah.
that's right.
This
yeah.
is these are adults who fear loss of culture with loss of language.
Right,
And
right.
catechism, they're not learning either. They're, they
Right.
enjoy the aspects of culture, but they're lost, we're
Mhm.
finding.
You know, and it's,
Go ahead.
We've also found that we have a lot of the adults that we have to teach how to read and write in Spanish before we can bring them to the next level.
Right, they don't have it, yeah.
They can't even read and write their own language, so
Right.
you're dealing with that also.
Right.
And trying to bring them to the next
It's a
level.
failure
Yeah.
in our education and
and no, yeah, and
Yeah,
it comes,
that's
yeah, it
right.
comes across the border, it's a failure
Yeah.
there, it's a failure here, it's a failure.
Yeah, which is why, I mean, everything we do, that's why there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It's respond to who do we have here at this time, what's the population, what's their need, because, and it's gonna change, right, very quickly as these kids who function primarily in English grow up. So this is what we do now in this situation. Where it goes, we don't know. And as the country maybe gets a little more bilingual, that might change. So it's really hard to predict that.
And I think it's a real challenge, and lastly, it's a challenge to the theology and the spirituality of the cloveness of the kids. You know, they, not to use too big a paintbrush, but I don't think many of them have the depth and the grasp and the presence of it as their parents and their grandparents. You know, they are products of the culture. You know,
Right.
give me my iPhone. You know,
Yes.
that's what.
it's happening for the English-speaking children in the United States.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
it cuts across the cultures.
Yeah, well, my experience would be Hispanic kids and Filipino kids hold on to it more than Anglo kids. They seem to be able to go deeper.
Well, they start
right?
with a stronger Catholic culture to
They do.
begin with. so
That's
it's
right.
more ingrained.
That's right.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, and hopefully the youth groups, the Holy Ghost groups that we support, hopefully they're also helping them to keep what is good and strong in that for them.
Well, and that's my perspective for the Anglos and in our populations. My hunch is that a lot of Anglos in America don't have a culture that they can rely on. We know we're German or Swedish or, but it's been so long ago
Yes.
that there's
Yeah.
sort of a little bit of envy there of the Hispanic culture because that's lacking.
And there's such recent.
Yeah, that's an anchor missing, big time.
Oh, yeah.
It just has happened over time. There's no getting around
It's
it.
just the way it is, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's true. That's the inside of the cathedral, which is very small, ironically. It was built in 1915 in Alaska, which is ancient history, and up there it's We did a cooking class, which actually led to people realizing that they could teach. I love that there's always people taking notes, because we have a lot of big cooks in our parish. And so that even formed some new leaders. And, that meant that we love to kind of hand it up, what we intended. They taught cooking lessons.
Shut it down.
And then our World Youth Day kids, which we have the irony of only one, they're all Hispanic except one's native, so we always had to say we'll switch to English. The kids kept going to Spanish and he was so excluded, it was really hard, but they are embraced by the whole parish to do this, so I think this is kind of a nice witness for the parish that the kids who have the most energy and were from the Hispanic community. And we did a blessing of them at Mass. And I wanted to just mention a couple thoughts quickly about stewardship of treasure. Early on in our parish, people had, and still once in a while, they wanted to divide the collection up, to say which Mass speaks the least, and we refused to do that, so we are not doing that. It's not about that. It's, might think. So resisted any pressure to do that. And also we try to really recognize how different people give. And certain cultures, Hispanic being one of them, are good at doing fundraisers to raise money. And you know, the ones who, Anglos tend to write checks more. And to, you know, maybe that will change with time, but right now that's what it is. So to honor that, and our pastor, who's Filipino, says, this is wonderful. You've built community in the way you raise funds. So to affirm that. And I'd really like to thank Julie for, we made a shift in our archdiocesan annual appeal, because you're supposed to sign your pledge. But in our archdiocese, the Samoans and the Hispanics now, it can give by saying, we're going to throw a fundraiser, and we can say 100 people gave $10. We don't have to sign your pledge. And so that we can say, yes, our parish participated. And there was some resistance to that. You know, maybe there's some logistical things that's not good, and maybe it can change. But to me, it's been a wonderful way, at least in this temporary stage, of saying, look, you're contributing. This is how you contributed, and we honor it. We put a lot of work into it. So I'm grateful to our archdiocese for accepting that way of doing it.
Question on the fundraiser. Was that done at the church or somewhere else?
Yeah, the church did it knowing that a certain amount of the money was going to the archdiocese, representing the Hispanic community's donation to the annual appeal from Our Lady of Guadalupe.
But that treasure, was that for everybody in your parish?
It's part of Guadalupe's, yes. It represented our gift from Guadalupe to the archdiocese, yeah.
The Alaskan Catholic appeal.
The Anchorage, like the archdiocese, the archdiocesan.
Like the Idaho Catholic appeal only.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you gotta run,
What's the drawback? I see a drawback on that, and I also realize that if, because we've seen it manifested in our diocese in Central Washington, that a very, very efficient tool, if you will, or instrument, is the event-driven fundraising.
Yeah.
But the problem is, and I see it, not to see a glass half empty here, but to be realistic, is that for the kind of, to be consistent and constant in fundraising, you know, that's good, if you will, on occasion, and they're quite successful on occasion. But when it comes to planning and formulating a plan for, you know, annual giving, this is, you know, I'm in a long line of people who talk about the difficulties in drawing in the Latino population for consistent, because whether it's